Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reimagine 2021 conference series. This is our eighth event. The theme for this event is State of the Art Chain. So we're experimenting with NFTs and a lot of creative ideas. I'm Roshan Mirajkar, one of the project managers at Reimagine 2021. And I'm so excited to welcome a returning guest here. With me here, I have Bruno Skvorc, the technical educator at the Web3 Foundation. Bruno, welcome back to the show. And we've interviewed you a couple of times. Each time it's been, different. Let's start off by just can you introduce yourself and let everyone know kind of what you contribute to the space and what do you see how do you spend your time in the space mostly?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Glad to be back. So I'm Bruno. I'm an Ethereum OG, and I used to work in education in Ethereum and Ethereum 2.0. Since a year and a half ago or so, I've been working at the Web3 Foundation as technical educator, which basically means that I copy paste knowledge from some people's heads into other people's heads. I just have to, decipher some complicated stuff and make it a little bit more simple for other people. That's how I spend my days. So writing articles, writing tutorials, doing conferences, doing webinars, anything that will help developers and interested parties get closer to Web3 in any shape or form.
Yeah, it's a pretty important role, I would say, because the developers and most of the early community in a lot of these projects are what make up the entire industry to some sense, or those are the people that you got to support to welcome in new people. We've interviewed you a couple of times, and I feel like each time we've talked to you, it's been different waves just in the industry. I think one time it was just about DeFi and people were understanding like Bitcoin only. And now what we've seen in the past couple of months or past year, we've seen this big craze on NFTs, right? Before we get too deep into that, I know you're working on a lot of projects there. Can you sort of tell a broader audience, like what's the closest thing in their day-to-day life they can relate to, like what an NFT is, to understand that better?
A pet. So if I have a cat, my cat is not fungible with your cat. We don't want to trade cats. But if I have $1, you can give me your dollar and we have the same dollar and we can both buy the same thing for that dollar. But if you have something that's provably unique, that's special to you, that's basically non-fungible. But fungibility is a spectrum. There's a lot of things that are said to be fungible but aren't, and those that are non-fungible but are. It's a spectrum, and it's not that easy to define. Like if you take the canonical example of Pokemon cards, those are usually used as an example for being non-fungible tokens, non-fungible. And so you have these unique characters that are all non-interchangeable, but the instances of that character in its own set are indeed fungible. So you can trade one Pikachu for another Pikachu, and that's nobody cares, right? But then if you compare it to the dollar, like $1 is $1, the dollar is actually less fungible than Pokemon cards because every dollar has a serial number. And this is actually a unique identifier of every single dollar bill. Whereas the Pokemon cards don't actually have a serial number or any kind of marker of print edition of any kind. So if you have two Pikachu side by side, they're more fungible than a dollar, which is touted as the kind of symbol of fungibility. So again, it's what you care about. If you have like an in-game character in a video game and you want him equipped in a red shirt only visually, then you couldn't care less what that red shirt does, what kind of attributes it has, how many pockets it has. As long as it looks the way you want it to look, that shirt, those red shirts are fungible for you. But if you are equipping your character for a battle, then you will absolutely care what that shirt does, right? If it gives you extra health, it's not going to be the same if it gives you an extra stomach size slot or something, right? So fungibility is a spectrum. It depends on what you value in a certain token that you own.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good explanation, especially with the Pokemon comparison, because a lot of people, growing up, they've been involved with games and trading cards. And I think a lot of the NFT industry has tried to capture that relatability. So I wanted to also ask you, what do you think is it about, like, do you have a perspective on, are there certain characteristics of an NFT as to why you think the celebrities, Hollywood, mainstream people are getting in and wanting to create these NFTs? Because in my view, it's like you have all of these other products in the crypto and blockchain space. I don't think people found them as interesting. Do you think that NFTs can kind of serve as a bridge from the traditional world to like the blockchain and crypto world? Like, do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, they can absolutely be a bridge. They will be a bridge, and this is what's going to tokenize the world, not the NFT, not the fungible tokens of the past that we said would tokenize everything, but NFTs are going to be tokenizing the world. This is because they are completely redefining digital ownership. And by redefining digital ownership, they're also extending to real world ownership as we map real world assets to digital assets. And even celebrities, those who are not in it to make a quick buck, are realizing that they can actually do stuff without middlemen. And they are starting to realize how powerful this is, how powerful it is to just be able to whip up something creatively and expose it to the community in a verified and trusted way without actually having to go out and reach out to those that used to peddle your stuff up until then. So I think this is quite the interesting shift. Of course, there's a lot of money grabs. Of course, there's a lot of scams. Of course, there's a lot of like it's a 2017 type of craze. But this time things are different because we have a much greater reach and we actually have products. So rather than just empty PDFs and white papers from 2017, we now have a lot more things to do on chain. And I think it's a much more interesting ecosystem. So I don't see this imploding as 2017 did. NFTs will bridge over into the mainstream in more ways than one. And I think we're not even close to the top until the largest of the large conglomerates start getting on board. So when you see Coca-Cola trying to buy a remark-based billboard in a metaverse, then you'll be able to tell, okay, maybe there's not much room to go from here. But until that happens, we've still got a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is different this time around. It's interesting that a lot of the same levers still exist as far as kind of like this unpredictability that we have in the space. I think when I compare it to other space, like for example, these other metrics of success, so to speak, like of course we need more developers contributing code, more users, but you have this unpredictability in the space where the thing that has the least amount of users or it's hardest to use somehow captures new interest in the space, as NFTs have. So I wanted to kind of dive deeper into what is your personal relation with all of this, because obviously you do many different things in the space. So I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit more about RMRK? And I also want to talk about the Kanaria NFTs. I know it's fairly new, but maybe before we go as deep into that, can you sort of tell us, what is Kanaria built on? Maybe if you want to talk about a little bit about the value of Polkadot for the people that don't even know it exists. It's all new stuff.
Yeah. So it's kind of a longish story, but I'll try to kind of compress it. In August last year, I noticed that the NFT craze was starting to ramp up again, and so at Web3 Foundation, we're building two chains, Polkadot and Kusama. And Polkadot is a chain that connects other chains and that lets them communicate with each other in a way that any chain that connects to it actually gives its features to everything else that's already connected. And so you have this tide that rises all the boats all the time. As soon as another chain connects, everybody else gets all of those features. And so if you plug Bitcoin into Polkadot, and then you plug Monero into Polkadot, and then you plug Ethereum into Polkadot, you can just go and launder your Bitcoin through Monero, get your clean Bitcoin out, and then put it into DeFi on Ethereum and earn interest on it, all in the same system, all through the same UI, all through the same commands. And these bridges that connect these chains together, they are one to many, which means that one chain that connects to the entire system is immediately connected to all the other chains because they're also connected to this whole ecosystem. And this is really powerful for extending the entire multiverse of blockchains, where every blockchain is kind of application specific, right? It can be as application specific as you want it. It can be optimized for a certain use case, but then it just inherits the security of the entire Polkadot network and also gets all of the features of the entire connected, like chain space there. And Kusama as a blockchain is just like Polkadot, only faster. And so it started out as an experimental network with some value, its tokens had value. But it started out as an experimental network to test out early Polkadot features. And maybe some of those features would end up on Polkadot, others would not. Why it had value rather than being just a testnet? Well, because it's not worth it to attack a testnet. But if you attack a value-bearing network, you can actually extract value from that attack. And so you have to incentivize bad actors to break the system so that you know that it's breakable. Over time, Kusama evolved into its own chain. It kind of got this artsy and cypherpunky nature, experimentation-friendly branding and attitude. And so a lot of people, especially creators, adopted it as their kind of home in the digital ecosystem. But because these chains are meant to connect other chains, they have to be super, super lightweight. And because they have to be lightweight, they can't support smart contracts because that's heavy logic to go through. So they don't have smart contracts. They are banking on chains that will connect to them to have smart contract logic. So they don't have to have them. This is the whole part, this whole application specific blockchain part of the story, where Kusama and Polkadot are actually chains that are specifically for connecting other chains. And then another chain that connects can have smart contracts. That's fine. And then another one can focus on just NFTs. That's also fine. Anyway, Kusama, being what it is, it kind of evolved into this standalone separate network that still gets features sooner than Polkadot and tests them for Polkadot, but it has real use cases, real value, real users, and real products and projects launching on it. And it's evolved into something much more serious than originally intended. And what I saw was an art-friendly blockchain without art and without the ability to use this coming NFT wave. And so I figured, let's hack NFTs onto it. And I wrote RMRK, as a inspired by colored coins from Bitcoin from back in the day when that was still a thing. You basically graffiti the chain with some custom values. And then I wrote a bunch of tools and rules on how to interpret these custom values to actually see value that technically isn't there. So recognize NFTs and see them as tokens that you can then send around using these special graffiti. So you can compare that to something like if you walk around town and you see a graffiti of a blue turtle on a garage, then if you're a civilian, you're going to think that's a nice blue turtle, or you're going to think, I don't like that they spray paint in that garage, and then you're going to move on. But if you're in a gang called Red Turtles, then you're going to know that you should not go further because you'll get your ass kicked. And so this is because these gangs share a common language. They understand each other, and they have this specification where they understand these messages as they encounter them throughout the town. And Remark is just like that. It graffitis your transactions on the chain, and then these tools interpret these messages in a special way. Basically, we forced NFTs onto Kusama, even though it doesn't have smart contracts. And so there are certain downsides to running NFTs without smart contracts. One is that in order to get the full state of the entire ecosystem of NFTs and to know who owns what, you have to basically fly through the entire past of all the NFTs that were issued and moved and sent and sold, and then get all of those messages, all of those graffiti, and then squash them into one final truth, because you have to have them in a sequential way. So like this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and so on. So you can't process the message that NFT 0125 was sold without actually first knowing that it even existed or it was listed for sale. So you have to process all the messages from the beginning. And this means that you need an archive node, which is very resource intensive and slow to sync. This is still pretty fast because Kusama is a young blockchain, but it's not going to get any faster as Kusama grows. And the other problem is that in order to, there's a double buy problem where if two people buy the same NFT in the same block, we don't have smart contracts to refund the second invalid transaction. And so when I first released Remark, some teams picked it up and started building on top of it. But it kind of soon became apparent that the bar needs to be raised and that we don't have the UX and quality that we should have as a good NFT chain. And so I formed a full-time team around it. And this full-time team has been developing tools to avoid these downsides for the past few months. We are now done with these tools, and we have released them as proof of concept and a test in production as the Kanaria platform. And the Kanaria platform is an NFT ICO launchpad. So this lets you launch your own NFT collection, something like CryptoPunks, similar to that, which immediately sets up your entire environment for selling these NFTs to the public from a certain address. And it uses Remark under the hood. And it comes with built-in protections against these double buys. And it comes with really quick syncing so that you don't have to wait for hours for it to synchronize the entire protocol and so on. And this is, at the same time, this is a fundraiser for the team's independence, so that if people claim these eggs, they need KSM for that. If they claim a lot of these eggs, then the team is going to be able to continue being full-time devoted to the Remark project. And so far, I'm happy to report that no bugs were found, no game-breaking bugs happened. Nobody lost money, so our protections seem to be working as intended. We are, of course, keeping it live until for another month or so, until May 17th, so that people can really, test it, break it and stuff. But we are quite confident that we've developed some really awesome things. And based on these findings, we will soon be releasing our official UI for Remark so that anybody can mint any token and put it up for sale and browse galleries and so on. So the ecosystem is coming, it's being built. And yeah, we're really excited to show people what we've got in store for Remark 2.0, because even without smart contracts, the Remark NFT system is the most advanced NFT system in existence right now. We added some features that no other NFT platform has, and this is super exciting, and we can't wait to show you everything.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome, and that's something that I really admire about you, that you don't really wait for implementations. You sort of just hack them and build them in, even if something is not natively built for a use case. I think it's a great point that a lot of the existing blockchain infrastructure can be repurposed. So really excited to check that out. And I also think that, with the strides that you're making, it's going to just improve the industry and NFT experience, because, I still use Ethereum. I like Ethereum, not to go on any one specific chain, but chains like Ethereum, there's too many people using it. It gets quite expensive. It's not a good experience for new people coming in the space, because they think that's how it always is. Maybe for the crypto natives, we know, right? But I think that's an important distinction that maybe can be changed as well. I want to kind of dive deeper into the utility and the future of NFTs, because I think you kind of have a unique viewpoint that not everyone shares. So what do you think will be the future utility of NFTs? And I wanted to ask you that, kind of touching on what you said a couple of minutes ago, will NFTs be interoperable, or will the value kind of originate from whatever network it's on? Because I thought the whole point of most of these NFTs is collectible and I don't know, keeping it in one blockchain. That's what it seems like right now. I don't see a lot of cross minting or being able to transmit your digital art or ownership into something else, right? Like these new chains that are coming along.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to be building bridges, so that's going to happen regardless. Somebody's going to build those, but that's kind of, NFTs right now are items that collect digital dust. You have them in your wallet and they do nothing really. So if you move that dusty item to another chain, it's just a dusty item on another chain. It's nothing special. And in fact, like while Kusama does offer cheaper interactions with NFTs right now, it does so because there are no users. So let's not get fooled by let's not feed the narrative that other chains are better than Ethereum just because they're cheaper. They're cheaper because they have no users. The real innovation will happen when things really scale. Like all of these different Ethereum killers, they are banking on that. Like, look how cheap we are. Yes, you're cheap because you've never given scaling a thought, because you didn't have to. And this is why nothing exists on Cardano and similar stuff. And also there's this recently popular gimmick of trying to accuse NFTs of being environmentally unfriendly. That's I mean, clinically insane. But it's popular to like bite down on, because it's a nice sound bite for the media, right? And it sounds interesting, but it's really, really dumb. And it has nothing to do with reality. And while Kusama is both cheap and eco-friendly because it's proof of stake and not proof of work, none of these are selling features for me. Selling features are features. And what we've actually built here for our NFTs is something that no other NFT system has, because I was sick of these digital dust gathering devices. Notably, we have like 4 distinct utility bringing features to NFTs. One is that NFTs can own other NFTs. And so you can imagine this as an in-game character having a backpack. And then you have other items in that backpack, and you can equip them at will. Why would you do that? Because they can have functional use. So our NFTs, the birds that are going to hatch from these Kanaria eggs. So we're selling on Kanaria, we're selling these digital egg NFTs. Remark has emoticons built into the protocol. And so you can send on-chain emotes to these eggs. When the eggs hatch, the birds are going to be, the look of the bird is going to be influenced by the emotes that you collected. And that's one use case there of how an NFT can evolve. But one more innovation that we've added into the mix is conditional rendering. And conditional rendering will change what an NFT shows you depending on some condition. And so if I have a painting of a digital moon and people send 50 rocket emojis to it, then a rocket can land on that moon. So now you have reactive art that can react to outside input and to other transactions. When you couple that with the ability to for NFTs to own other NFTs, then you can actually modify the look of the NFT depending on which NFT it has. And so these birds will have actually equipable props, where if you equip another NFT like a hairbrush, that bird will actually show the hairbrush in its hand. And so you will now have actually gamified NFTs that can evolve and that you can release other add-ons for. And anybody else in the world can release new items for these birds that you can then send to these birds and equip them. So we've actually built the world's first global gamified NFT system where anybody can participate in it with new mods and new add-ons. And then you add into that multi-resource NFTs, which we've done. Multi-resource NFTs let you define several resources for a single NFT. So if I have an NFT of a 3D object, then if I load it in OpenSea as the marketplace, it's just going to show the high resolution photo. But if I load it into 3ds Max, it's just going to load the 3D file directly, and I can edit the file. And so what gets shown depends on the context it's loaded in, so that with the necessary plugins, the various tools are aware of what they're loading. And so now you can have an entire video game in one NFT, where one resource is its code that gets executed, another resource is its cover, like a box cover from the olden days, and another resource is screenshots from the game or something like that. And the final component of all of this is NFTs as DAOs. So every NFT published on Remark can be fractionalized into fungible tokens. So you have token-based ownership of these NFTs. And since these NFTs can actually issue commands of their own, like equip this NFT or burn yourself, aka destroy yourself, the token holders of the NFT can vote for these actions. And so now it's not difficult to imagine a metaverse where we have a huge billboard, like a virtual billboard with an empty facade. Now, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Nike come in, and they each mint an NFT that is actually a texture for that billboard. And they send their texture to that billboard so that the billboard now owns these textures. And now we have token holders who own that billboard with their tokens. And now they can collectively vote which texture the billboard's going to equip. And now the brands can collectively try to bribe the community to actually show their advertisement in the metaverse. And so now you have these conglomerates interacting with the wider crypto community and vying for virtual real estate, virtual space, all based on NFTs and all automatic, all trustless, all based on just token shares and token ownership of people who are involved with all of this. So what you end up with is a system of art Legos that you can put together into really intricate structures and really dynamic NFTs that can evolve with the platform as the platform around it evolves as well.
I think that's a great comparison again that you did with like, again, trying to compare it to the mainstream players, because I think there's a lot of use cases and cool things that people within the crypto community build. But like you just mentioned, kind of, you know, zooming out to the macro, like what's really important, this concept of digital ownership, I think is really awesome, because a lot of the most of the things that we do with our phones is all digital. But then when you look at things like art or ownership or even interactions, you know, with your favorite football club, right? It's not really digital yet. And I would say that there's no real opportunity for people to also benefit from the things that they're interested in. And that's what I'm excited about in terms of a lot of this stuff, bridging that value and you actually owning it. So I want to go a little bit deeper into these use cases, because I think you mentioned some interesting thing. What are the most exciting use cases? It doesn't even have to be NFT specific, maybe even DeFi, because I've seen a lot of like use cases for things like football, being able to, I guess, collect kind of like a fantasy football, or with the NBA Top Shot, right? You had like this NBA fantasy type of game. I think that's what they're rolling out. So what are the most exciting use cases you think will come out in the next year or so, if it's not only just tied to ownership, I guess? Like how can people benefit the most? And also, if you want to answer like where can people kind of get started with learning or experimenting, like what would you recommend?
Well, there are some interesting experiments in that area. The problem is that everything's happening on Ethereum, and Ethereum is prohibitively expensive to interact with. Just the so it hinders innovation right now. We are all looking forward to the day when that's no longer a thing, but it kind of hinders innovation right now. And I do know that a lot of different NFT products are launching and NFT platforms, and you can if you want to get more interactive NFTs, you can join us at Remark on Kusama. You can check out Mintable, which is launching on Near very very soon. You can go to Matic, which is basically EVM, so Ethereum. So any NFT experimentation will be cheaper and faster there. But not a lot of people are doing that in a very meaningful way. And basically what the entirety of Ethereum's NFT ecosystem amounts to is different whitelisting trading UIs popping up. So it's just a bunch of selling platforms for NFTs that whitelist different artists. Not a lot of action happening there, and the cost is a part of it, because they're banking on the fact that you buy the NFT once and then don't interact with it anymore. Therefore, it's not that expensive to buy it just once. But if you want functionality like our emotes for NFTs, where people are sending hundreds of emotes all the time, you can't really pay $150 of fee for one emote on an NFT. Nobody's going to do that. So to get started, you would have to try with these alternative platforms. I do actually recommend keeping an eye on our social platforms or whatever official channels we have for the announcement soon about the official UI, because that's going to be a very UX friendly place to start experimenting on. I honestly haven't looked at what Ethereum is offering in terms of UX for a while, so I can't say there. But I do know that Nate from Mintable is doing some very nice things. So if you get the chance to check out Mintable on Near, for sure. But also, yeah, we'll have our official UI for that so that you can easily get started. And in terms of these fantasy football things, these actually have a great potential, but are again hindered by the fees, and people are hesitant to use a centralized platform. Like, for example, So Rare just launched a fantasy football thing with Ubisoft, and this is great. This is like, name recognition and everything, and yet it's not picking up the way it should be because it's centralized, because it happens on behind So Rare's gate, and on their server basically. So and the other alternative is going fully decentralized, but then you'll pay hundreds in fees for every interaction. So you can't win these days with these experiments there. They are very fun, they're very interesting, and they definitely have a future there. All sorts of stuff that relies on somebody picking an option and then persisting that option through any kind of tournament like infrastructure, and then adding value to that picked option that they now own, will work. So fantasy football, fantasy basketball scores and stuff like that, absolutely. But I'm more bullish on the in-game use cases, metaverse game use cases, and so on. Like one of the most interesting areas that I'm like experimenting with is augmented reality ownership of real estate. And so now you have a world divided into plots. Each plot is an NFT. And again, you have ownership of that plot of land, and you can put anything you want on it. And so now when the time comes to have the augmented reality future that we've all been wishing for decades, where you just put a lens into your eye and see everything that's happening around you, now you own the virtual real estate around you. And now you can modify the world to your liking because you own the NFT piece of land in front of you. And this is something that I'm very excited about. So these types of experiments are coming, but very, very slowly.
Yeah, gaming is a big use case, and I would say just to add on to that, like we already all have some form of our digital landscape or digital ownership. I would just say it's our personal like social media profiles. I think that's how a lot of people think about their channels or their Twitter profile. It's something they own and interact with every day and provide value. But I think people just haven't crossed that bridge yet, which is slowly happening day by day. And that bridge is basically what you just said, like getting people comfortable with owning digital land, even though they can't physically interact with it. It's hard for some people, right? Because a lot of people are like, where's this value coming from, or what can I do with it, which are fair questions. And I think to kind of bring this around full circle, it always goes back to the early experimenters and also builders. So I want to give you the chance to also talk a little bit about the Web3 Foundation grant that you have. I noticed that some of the projects in there were actually NFT projects. So the Web3 Foundation grants, is that like a quarterly thing? And how can people get involved in that as well? Like, is it for beginners, advanced people? I'll let you kind of explain that.
So the foundation has two levels of grants. There's open grants, which go up to 30K USD, and those happen in the open. So you apply via GitHub and you get feedback via GitHub. Those are like almost always approved because they're usually smaller projects that the entire community can benefit from. If not long-term, then short-term through useful code that people can reverse engineer and apply to their own projects. And general grants are the more closed kind for the more expensive projects. These require a bit more due diligence and a bit more in terms of approval. And they're usually reserved for bigger projects that are more serious. Anybody can apply as long as they have a good idea. The whole process is documented on the grants web page. So it's just grants.web3.foundation or web3.foundation/grants. It's open to absolutely everybody. And as long as it brings any kind of benefit to the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem, it's probably going to get accepted. Though these days, I would actually say it's better to apply to one of the on-chain treasuries of either Kusama or Polkadot. Both chains have millions in their treasuries and are giving them away for this exact thing. So if you have an idea on what to build on Kusama or on Polkadot, apply to the respective treasury. Talk to the council first. So the council is an elected set of members on that chain who control the treasury. I'm on the council for Kusama. I'm not on the council for Polkadot. Councils are slightly different. And essentially, you would be asked to argue your case on the Polk Assembly Forum, which is the forum for discussing all governance around Kusama and Polkadot. And some counselors will ask you questions there. Once you answer them, your treasury proposal can be approved, and you will just get the money into your account as soon as it's approved. There can be multi-tiered proposals. There can be several milestones. There can be multiple projects at once. So whatever idea you have, I suggest talking to the counselors and getting, feeling the pulse of how they feel about it, and just seeing if it can be made to work. We have like this brings it to a total of 4 funding sources that you can have in our ecosystem, and I think it's very difficult to fail at all 4.
Yeah, that's a great way to at least propose like new projects, new ideas. And I just want to put it out there that like most of the cool things that people build in the space, they start off with like some of these grants. People with just an idea, and the whole crypto community is quite receptive. The last question to kind of wrap things up here. What is the most bullish thing you're looking forward to in 2021, just with everything that happened in 2020 and how it affected our entire industry? And also, I want to give you a chance to, how can people connect with you just on social media, and any direct links to, should people go to like Polkadot main homepage, or any apps you want to shout out?
Yeah, sure. So the most bullish thing by far is parachains launching. So the functionality that's going to let other chains connect to Kusama and Polkadot is very, very close. And once that happens, we'll finally get chains connected and sharing features. And we'll have the multiverse of blockchains that we've always wanted. All of this volume and liquidity and utility, everything's going to merge into one big ocean of awesome. And I'm really excited for that. If people want to get in touch, they can just hit me up on Twitter. It's @bitfalls. They can also just get in touch, Bruno @web3.foundation, always available. I don't know. If you want to find out more about our NFT solution, just go to remark.app, rmrk.app. And there's some links there for the community and stuff. So feel free to join in. And I'm always open to a chat if anybody's interested in anything. If you want to launch something of yours, some NFT system, ICO thing on our technology, we'd be happy to take you through it as soon as it's battle tested some more and released into the public domain. So we're really excited to share that with everybody.
Bruno's a pretty busy guy, but I love his attitude. He's always receptive and open. Bruno, thank you so much for coming as a guest again here at Reimagine 2021. It was a pleasure having you. And I'll let you all tune back into the show.
Thanks. Pleasure was mine.